to make those rainbows in my mind. When I think of you sometime, I wanna spend some time with you. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Building the castles in the sky. Just the two of us. You and I. You know, I should have auditioned for America's Got Talent when it was still a thing. Yep, that was some good singing if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it was so good that I completely tuned it out a few minutes ago.
Meh, you just don't appreciate true art, you Philistine.
So why are you in such a cheery mood today?
I'm not. I'm actually pissed off.
Oh yeah? About what?
Oh, don't worry. You'll see in a few minutes. Just take a look at this luxurious cabin management has given us.
Well, it's about as nice as I'd expect for something in the middle of a hellscape.
Maybe if you didn't screw up so badly on your last assignment, we could have gotten a better place to stay.
Or maybe you could have used some of those supervisor privileges and negotiated for a better place.
Nuh-uh, the fault is entirely on you.
Sure, whatever. Let's just get down to business. Does management have any assignments for us before we venture out into the wild?
Yeah, orders just came in. Here's a list of short games that management wants you to review in your next video.
Perfect, because I just created a format specifically for reviewing several short games in a single video. Backlog Blowout. I guess I was one step ahead of management this time. Wait, what's that timer for?
Oh, you know, management wants me to make sure your video doesn't end up being 4 hours long. That means make your reviews short. No 30-minute long rambles. Got it?
Wasn't planning on it, but yeah, I got it.
Good. Now, do the thing where you talk about the video games.
Should I? Because I'm enjoying wasting your time. Yeah, great idea. Cool, good, got it. Let's start off with the Town of Light. Here's a familiar name if you're a longtime viewer of this channel, LKA Studios. And if you're new here, first of all, hi. And second, here's a quick refresher. So last year I reviewed LKA Studios' most recent game, Martha is Dead. I remember stumbling upon it while browsing the new and trending tab on Steam, which was admittedly pretty empty, probably because it was the same week Elden Ring released. Still, I was surprised I hadn't heard of the game before, but after a quick Google search I discovered why. There was barely any pre-release coverage for it other than a couple of articles about the PlayStation version being censored. Oh yes, the same company that published The Last of Us Part 2 was all of a sudden getting sniffy about allowing graphic content on its platform.
Hey, you're on the clock, asshole.
I'm well aware of that, thank you very much. Long story short, the dismissive reviews and lack of coverage bugged me, so I decided to review it myself, and I liked it. I had conflicting thoughts about the subversive parts of the story, and the PC performance was, to put it kindly, utter dog shit. But overall, I found it to be an intimate, haunting experience, as well as a captivating exploration of mental illness set during a historical period that is best remembered for a certain man with a funny mustache. Not that one. It lingered in my mind, and after a while, I became interested in checking out the studio's first game, The Town of Light. Based on my experience with Martha is Dead, I was sure this would also be wholesome fun for the entire family.
I tried to explain what was going on in my head. They tied me to the bed for days.
Anyway, so The Town of Light is set in Tuscany, Italy, at the Volterra Psychiatric Asylum. You play as Renee, formerly a patient at the asylum in the 1940s. Fast forward to 2016, years after its closure, and Renee has returned to the now abandoned asylum, intent on piecing together her past as well as discovering what happened to a patient named Amara, who Renee supposedly had a relationship with.
She was my only hope in this hell. I was descending down among the damned. But that woman and her smile kept me alive.
As I sat there watching the intro, taking note of the familiar Tuscany setting and mental health subject matter, I wrote down a question in my notes. Is this just Proto-Martha is Dead? After playing through the game twice and witnessing all the story threads, here's my conclusion. Yes. And no. Yes, like Martha is Dead, it's not a horror game in the traditional sense, which the story page proudly advertises. No zombies or supernatural presences, eh? Do surreal nightmare sequences count? But anyway, yes, it's a walking sim, yes, it's set in Tuscany, and yes, the protagonist is also a woman suffering from mental illness. This may lead you to believe it's just a less refined Martha is Dead, and isn't worth your time if you've already played that game. But stick around, because I do think the narrative is engaging enough to warrant a playthrough. However, if we're talking strictly in terms of gameplay, then yes, and in this case less refined is being generous. Because this is the most dated walking sim gameplay I've experienced in a while. Like, we're talking Dear Esther levels of dated. Yeah, imagine that. While I've enjoyed plenty of games in the genre, The Town of Light made me remember some of the gameplay tropes I'm glad we've mostly ditched. A flashlight that barely illuminates your surroundings, no sprint, no jump, slow, and I mean slow walk speed. I understand that you don't want us barreling down the halls like a Gears of War character, but at the very least give us a light jog. Because nothing kills my desire to explore more than a slow walk speed, and when backtracking is a core part of the gameplay, this gets old very, very, very quickly. If the concern was that a faster walk speed would have affected the pacing, I disagree, and the atmosphere is so unsettling that I don't think it would have hurt that either. I guess that'll have to do for a segue because I'm on a timer and beating a dead horse. That was an expression, YouTube. One of the things I've grown to admire about LKA Studios is their commitment to making their settings believable, taking influence from real-world locations and avoiding the usual cliches associated with them. The Volterra Asylum is a haunting place, and that's without bringing in anything supernatural or smearing bloodstains everywhere. Beams of sunlight shine through the barred windows, barely illuminating cluttered, rotting rooms where all sorts of horrifying treatments took place. Books and posters depicting grotesque medical procedures are scattered throughout, heightening that sickening feeling as you venture from room to room. We're eventually given a reprieve from the asylum's dreary atmosphere as we venture outside, where we are greeted by the warm light of the noon and setting sun. Once again, LKA Studios demonstrates their ability to weave tranquil moments into their games without diminishing the disturbing tone of their narratives. On that note, let's briefly talk about the story, shall we? So there won't be a separate section for spoilers in this review, because, you know, the time limit and all that. But there will be some light spoilers in this next section, as I feel they're necessary to talk about. So if you're interested in playing the game and want to go in completely blind, maybe consider placing a pot on your head and smacking it with a fork until I'm done. So let's return to that comment about The Town of Light not being a horror game in the traditional sense. This is true, and to paraphrase the store page, you'll find no zombies, ghosts, goblins, demons, or Jared Letos in this game. Instead, you'll be subjected to the nightmarish living conditions of asylums in the 1900s. Like I said, wholesome fun for the entire family. Truthfully, it's a draining experience, but not draining in a Last of Us Part 2 way where you finish it and feel like you've been punched in the face for several hours. No, it's a harrowing exploration of the lingering effects of severe trauma, and all the uncomfortable scenes and topics are in service of this theme. As such, the game never spirals into just being misery porn, but that doesn't mean it isn't tough to sit through. Quite the opposite, actually. As Renee wanders through the abandoned halls of the asylum, she experiences intense flashbacks to her time there. Needless to say, these sequences are upsetting, as they depict grueling medical procedures, sexual abuse by staff members, and attempts at suicide. The game doesn't just focus on these isolated instances of abuse, but also on the general cruel, uncaring attitude of the asylum staff.
Calm down. You must be calm. Don't get agitated. We'll make you calm down. Is that the only thing that matters?
Here's a woman who suffered from early childhood abuse, and as a result has become unstable, suffering from violent mood swings, schizophrenia, and bouts of self-abuse. At the asylum, however, Renee isn't treated like a human being in need of serious help, but more like a lab rat. She's carted back and forth between different doctors, whose only solutions are more injections, more time in isolated cells, and more inhumane medical procedures. The question, what the fuck is any of this accomplishing, rattled around my brain, and my blood started to boil while reading the medical documents in which the doctors admitted they had no idea what the long-term effects of her treatments would be like. Tragically, we see during the present-day sequences that Renee still suffers from schizophrenia, and as a result of a medical procedure I won't spoil, her memories of certain events are distorted.
I never had children. I don't think. Let's read it. I must understand. I must remember.
Occasionally, we are confronted with dialogue choices where we help Renee recollect her past, using information from medical documents and other clues in the environment. This is why I played it twice, and to answer your burning question, no, there isn't more than one ending. What does change, however, is the accuracy of her memories, especially those involving Amara. In one playthrough, Renee reminisces about going on peaceful walks and engaging in sexual acts with her. In another, well, those peaceful walks have a lonely quality to them all of a sudden. Naturally, you being the smart, clever, thoughtful viewer you are, probably think this is all leading to some big reveal that Amara wasn't real, and Renee was actually just sitting in a corner playing Hungry Hungry Hippos with herself the whole time. I'll put your mind at ease and inform you that's not the case. Fortunately, it's a bit more nuanced than that. What I will say is you should consider playing the game twice. But here's some advice. Space out your playthroughs. Don't play them back to back. Trust me, I did that, and I was a wreck for the rest of the day. But now I hear you say, yeah, it's draining and sad. Got it, so is my bank account, and I wouldn't play a game about that either. Yeah, so is mine. What's your point? But empty piggy banks aside, I can understand this perspective, and it speaks to a greater question. What exactly are we getting out of this game? I can only speak for myself, of course, but here's my answer.
Your brief answer.
Yeah, okay, my brief answer. In short, the Town of Light made me appreciate how far we've come in the field of mental health. Not just in terms of research, but also in how we treat and care for those who suffer from mental illness. It opens with a statement detailing that everything shown in the game comes from rigorous research into asylums from that period. This research is weaved into a story that, while fictional, captivates and informs the player without being ham-fisted, preachy, or shying away from its dark subject matter. The Town of Light will be too heavy for some, and that's understandable. But personally, I appreciate the unflinching approach it takes in depicting the inhumane conditions asylum patients live through. Because of this, I have a strong feeling Renee's story will linger in my mind in the same way Julia's did. So yeah, I think it's worth buying if you've already played Martha is Dead, provided you can tolerate some dated gameplay, of course. Right, but here's the thing. LKA Studios, you've made 2 games in a row about the same topic. That's fine. They both get the Walrus Studios seal of approval. Round of applause. But now, you really gotta shake things up in your next project. Let's take a break from the asylums, the Tuscany setting, and the walking sim gameplay. I want to see you do something completely different. Regardless, I look forward to seeing what you guys cook up next.
And I look forward to seeing you move on to the next game.
I was just about to do that. Man, you're impatient. Wait, I almost forgot. Hey, I'm done talking about the Town of Light. You can take the pot off now. Hello? Whatever, let's move on to Severed Steel. So you're telling me an FPS that combines mechanics from 2 of my favorite games of all time, with neon lighting and a Lorne-esque soundtrack, came out 2 years ago and only now am I made aware of it? Unbelievable. Someone's got some explaining to do. Because this is almost everything I love jammed into one game. I should have heard about this shit the second it went into development. For the sake of my audience's sanity, I will not, repeat, I will not endlessly compare the game to Fear and Max Payne. Lord knows thousands of YouTubers have done that already. Let's pretend we live in a world where those games don't exist, as depressing as that sounds, and judge Severed Steel on its own merits, of which it has many. But I do have some minor gripes which I'll get into later. I mean, I wouldn't be a YouTube reviewer if I didn't have a few. The campaign will be the primary focus of this review, as there isn't a whole lot to say about the firefight and roguelite modes other than, if you like the gameplay loop, you'll enjoy them. Yes sir, that's why I like to call some quality video game journalism. Put that shit on the front of the box and give me a review code for your next game. But anyway, Severed Steel is an old school, new school, John Woo-esque, gravity-defying, jumpy, dodgy FPS with destruction mechanics and advanced movement. There, I hope that's enough buzzwords for you. It's Greylock Studios' debut title, and judging by the trailer for their upcoming game, Echo Point Nova, they seem pretty content with making games exclusively in the, what I described at the beginning of this paragraph genre. Okay, let's go over the story before we get started. Ready? Here goes. You play as a woman with a missing arm, who wakes up in a trash compactor in a mysterious facility. Now you must escape.
And?
No, that's it. Oh, I guess you also get a Samus-style arm cannon shortly after leaving the trash compactor. Hey, do you think Walrus Studios will provide me with one if I cut off my own arm? Yeah, there isn't much to say about the story, so let's dive straight into the gameplay, no pun intended. And let me begin by saying that Severed Steel warrants the chaotic description I gave it. It's safe to say this is sensory overload the game. It has bullet time, destructible environments, wall running, wall kicking, sliding, diving, double jumping, and flipping. Any more mechanics and your computer would explode, which is probably why a grappling hook wasn't included. Maybe in the sequel, perhaps? But to its credit, it's able to combine all these wild mechanics into, admittedly, an insanely entertaining game. And that's because they all seamlessly work together. You can run on a wall, double jump off and transition into a dive, activate bullet time, and proceed to flip upside down and shoot an enemy behind you. None of this feels clunky at all. It's also important to note that killing enemies replenishes your bullet time. So once you get better at chaining your kills, you'll be soaring through the air in slow motion for well over 10 seconds, gunning down everything around you. That is, until you run out of ammo. Also, there's no reloading in this game. Because, you know. But f that shit. Just toss your empty gun at the enemy, kick him in the stomach, and take theirs. It's free. The government can't stop you. Wait, are those sirens? Severed Steel encourages, nay, demands you adapt an aggressive playstyle. That's why I love it. It doesn't want you to hide in the corner and wait for your health to regen or run away and scrounge for ammo. No. Wrong. Incorrect. Foolish that you would even think that. It wants you to throw yourself back into the fray. Literally. Need a gun? Grab one off an enemy. Out of ammo? Not a problem. Just steal another gun. Need the very essence that holds you together and keeps you connected to this mortal coil? What I meant to ask was, do you need more health? No worries. Just kill them. To repeat, this also refills your bullet time meter, and given how many enemies are in each level, you'll almost never run out. Excellent. I'm glad the game isn't stingy with this mechanic. In contrast, let me regale you with my recent experience with the Hong Kong Massacre. It's basically Hotline Miami if it was directed by John Woo. As you can guess, bullet time is a huge part of the gameplay and presentation. It's not bad, actually, but my enjoyment of the game was hampered by how little it actually wants you to use it. Here's the deal. If you want to earn points to upgrade your weapons, you need to complete the same 3 challenges in each level. 1. Beat the level within a certain time limit. 2. Beat the level without missing a shot. And 3. Beat the level without using bullet time. What? Did you guys even play your own game? Because it's blatantly balanced with bullet time in mind. Just look at how quickly you die without it. Severed Steel is balanced in a similar way, but if you're out of bullet time for more than 10 seconds and aren't constantly diving and sliding all over the place, you're playing it wrong and should probably go back to the tutorial and pay close attention this time. Doctor's orders. Because the game wants you to embrace the John Woo fantasy, which entails crashing through windows, performing crazy stunts, and soaring through the air in slow motion while shooting wildly in every direction. Almost like a TF2 spin bot, now that I think about it. You also need to get creative with your movement, as precision aim alone isn't enough to get you through each level unscathed. Fortunately, the levels are designed with all sorts of weird, wacky movement combos in mind. You won't be constantly running into invisible walls, which is nice. So why not try double jumping off a wall onto another, kicking off it for a boost, and then diving to reach a platform? Or how about leaping off a wall, blowing a hole in another, and diving through the newly created opening? Destruction mechanics. Those are cool, right? Yes. And every other answer is wrong. So your arm cannon acts as a mini rocket launcher, with it being able to destroy walls, floors, ceilings, and enemies too, I guess. It's an integral part of the gameplay, and thankfully, it isn't a separate weapon you have to clumsily switch to in the middle of combat. With the press of a button, you can shoot 1, or 3, or 5 shots as you're leaping through the air while firing your primary weapon at the same time. I used it. A lot. I felt like I was role-playing an on-the-spot renovator. Why yes, good sir, I do see a whole lot of potential in your old building. You could even say these new renovations will be explosive. Look, I'm stable and can be trusted around explosives. Wow, this looks like a fun game. What gripes could you possibly have with it? This is a certified head of research and development complaint here, but I wish there was more of a story. I know, who cares when the gameplay is this fun, right? But see, I'm one of those people who needs some context with my chaos. It's why Doom 2016 is one of my favorite games. I love it because it's a frantic, gory shooter with a surprisingly entertaining story. There's memorable characters, humor, and a perfectly hateable villain. Doom 2016 understands that you need narrative context in order to give your actions weight and catharsis. Think of the famous Argent filter scene.
We're only temporarily disabling the tower. You need to remove each lens individually. Carefully release the hinges.
Would this scene have been as effective if we didn't establish that Argent energy is the cause of the invasion, and also if Samuel Hayden wasn't imploring you not to destroy the filters? No. That context is what makes it both satisfying and funny, and that's what Severed Steel is missing. What Severed Steel offers in the way of context are short, static cutscenes with no dialogue at the end of each chapter. All of them combined add up to about 3 minutes worth of story. That's it. Now, I'm not saying this needs to have a story like a Sony exclusive. Absolutely not. But I just want a little more context for what I'm doing. Because in reality, Severed Steel's campaign plays like a loosely connected series of arenas, occasionally broken up by someone flashing what is basically concept art in your face. If a sequel is in the works, here's what I'd like to make clear. I don't want to be buried in overlong cutscenes or sit through dry exposition dumps. I had enough of that shit in Hired Gun, thank you very much. What I'd like to see are a few short, atmospheric, story-focused sections scattered throughout. You know, kinda like the ones in Hotline Miami. I've always found that to be an effective way of telling a story in an action-heavy game without wresting all control away from the player. It's a great way to incorporate some world building, too. But at the end of the day, I can't complain too much about a game that has a revolver shotgun. The fact that I still occasionally boot it up to mess around in the firefight mode should be enough of a recommendation right there. Severed Steel throws a lot of wild mechanics into a blender, but manages to produce something coherent, highly enjoyable, and endlessly replayable. It may be all core gameplay loop and nothing else, but when the gameplay is this well designed, engaging, and stylish, you'd have to be really pedantic to let its minor flaws drag down what is otherwise a fun, chaotic experience. So in conclusion, 10 out of 10 would dive through a window like Father Karras at the end of The Exorcist again. Well, that's another one in the bin. Hey, we're making good progress so far, don't you think?
Are you kidding? We're only halfway through the list and look at how much time you've wasted.
Well, excuse me for wanting to be thorough.
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't you say you were going to cover all these in a single video?
No.
Because I just created a format specifically for reviewing several short games in a single video.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Now, management wants you to split the video into 2 parts.
I mean, I think we can still fit this into 1 part, but okay.
Tough shit. Now go take a break. Management's orders.
You mean like, right now?